Okay, so this is the fraction portion of the lesson. This is part 2, of course. You should have already watched the decimal portion of this lesson. So we're going to do some reminders about how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. So again, you should have your highlighter because some of these steps will apply today, some of them will not. We are not going to deal with solving fraction problems that also deal with the integer rules. That will actually come at a later time. But we will be dealing with just your basic fraction steps. So yes, if we look at our steps that we see up here, the first thing we are going to do is find a common denominator. Okay, so that's what you always do with your adding and subtracting of fractions only. Then we also are going to follow step number 2, which is to rewrite them with equivalent fractions. Now, steps number 3 we will not use because that deals with integers. Number 4 we will not use as well, but we will do step number 5, which is reduce your answer, whether it's an improper fraction that needs to be converted to mixed or just reducing. And we will not do number 7. So let's look at example number 1. No mixed numbers, just fractions. So if we follow the steps, we're finding a common denominator, which is the first number that both 3 and 5 can go into, so that would be 15. And yes, you are writing this down in your flip chart notes, by the way. 3 goes into 15 5 times 2 is 10. 5 goes into 15 3 times 3 is 9. Then when you add straight across, you add the top number, but of course the bottom number stays the common denominator. Our answer here is an improper fraction, so we want to convert that back into a mixed number. So you ask yourself, 15 goes into 19 how many times? One whole time. When I take 15 away from 19, I have 4 15ths remaining. That is your final answer for this problem. Okay, we're skipping 2 and 3 for right now. We're going to go to number 4. Here we have a subtraction problem. So again, the first step, we would find a common denominator. So the first number that both 8 and 4 can go into is 8. So we rewrite the fractions. 4 goes into 8 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2. 8 goes into 8 1 time, so that remains a 5. And I'm going to bring down the rest of the problem. Because when I go to subtract, what I should be able to see is I can't take 5 from 2. I can't take 5 away from 2. It's not possible. So I've got to borrow. And when you borrow, all right, you make the whole number 1 less, and then you're going to add 1 whole to the 2. Well, 1 whole is 8 over 8 here. So basically, I'm taking the 8 and adding it to the top number there to make a new top number. Now I can do the subtraction. So 6 minus 3 is 3, 10 minus 5 is 5, and 5/8 is already in reduced form. Let's keep moving. Next, we're moving into multiplying and dividing fractions, and most of these steps will apply. So if you have your highlighter, we are going to, move that back over. We are going to do step 1 here. If they are mixed numbers, you convert to improper. We are going to cross cancel as our second step. We're going to look to do that. You may not always get to cross cancel. And of course, we're going to multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then reduce your final answer. So all those steps will apply. So if we look at number 6, step number 1 says we change mixed numbers into improper fractions. So you do multiply, then add. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2. 4 times 2 plus 3 is 8, plus 3 is 11 over 4. We then look to cross cancel, which we can't in this situation, where there's not a number that we can divide out on top versus on bottom. So we just multiply straight across and then convert it back into a mixed number. So 8 goes into 33 4 times with 1 8 remaining, and that is my final answer. Now with division, most of the same steps apply. The deal is we don't divide fractions. So we do still change to improper fractions, but then we find the reciprocal of the second fraction. And a term that you have used in the past is keep, change, flip. All right? It means we keep the first number like it is, we change the division to multiplication, and we flip the second fraction. Then you're still going to multiply the fractions and reduce your answer. So if we look at number 1, we don't do step number 1 because we have no mixed numbers. but we can do our keep, change, flip. So we keep, change, flip. Now we can look at cross-canceling, which we can do. You look to divide numbers out within the problem, but it has to be top versus bottom. So I can divide 3 and 6 by 3 and get 1 and 2, and I can divide 5 and 15 by 5 to get 1 and 3. So now that when I multiply straight across, it's already in reduced form other than converting it back into a mixed number. So that's your final answer there. Look at number 8. First step, convert to improper. So 6 times 3 plus 1, that's going to give me 19 over 6, divided by 3 times 1 plus 2, 5 over 3. Now we have to change it into a multiplication problem. So that's going to give us keep, change, flip. At this point, we look to cross cancel, which I can do. I can divide the 3 and the 6 out to give me 1 and 2. When I multiply straight across, I end up with 19 over 10, which has to be converted back into a mixed number. So 10 goes into 19 one time with 9/10 remaining. There's your final answer there. All right, let's switch over now to our spiral. Because I have a few other situations that I want to cover real quickly with you. So again, in your spiral, you will want to write these examples down and follow along. I actually might have you do a couple of them yourself. Matter of fact, I want you to do 1 and 3 on your own after I get done with numbers 2 and 4. So I'm going to cover 2 and 4. Then you're going to turn around and using the steps that I've shown you up to this point and using your flip chart notes, you're going to do number 1 and 3 on your own, and we'll talk about that the next day in class. So let's look at number 2. I'm subtracting here. Now, one of the things I sometimes encourage when you're adding and subtracting is it's sometimes hard to see what you need to do when your numbers are going across the page. So lining them up vertically sometimes tends to help see, okay, what step needs to happen. Okay, when I go to subtract, I've got to have a fraction to subtract from. So this is a situation where I have to borrow. So I'm going to take 1 whole away, and I got to make a fraction here on top of this 4/5. Well, since the denominator is 5, then I might as well make it 5 over 5. So now I have common denominators, and then I can just do the subtraction. So 6 minus 4 is 2, 5 minus 4 is 1, to get an answer of 2 1/5. All right, so I want you to go do number 1, following the normal steps for adding fractions, find your common denominator, all that good stuff. So number 4. All right, the only thing about number 4 that I just want you to be aware of is that when you have a whole number and you're multiplying and dividing, you don't borrow like we did on number 2. You just basically turn the whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. So this is technically 2 3/8 divided by 2 over 1, because we have to have it as a fraction. All the other steps still apply. We're still going to convert to improper. So 8 times 2 plus 3, 19 over 8. Divided by, we now have 2 over 1. Now we go through our keep, change, flip. So that gives us keep, change, flip. We look to cross cancel, which we can't in this case. So if we just multiply straight across, we get 19 over 16. And then when we convert this back into a mixed number, 16 goes into 19 one time with, so 3/16 remaining. Okay, so now you're going to do number 3, remembering what I just told you on number 4 about the whole number, but all the rest of the steps apply. So finish those 2 problems up in your spiral. We'll talk about those tomorrow in class.